You got him. You got him.
I see it.
Where? Oh, bring him up a bit more. Okay, just wait. Let's have a look at him. Nice. It's a beauty. Hey?
Yeah.
It's perfect. Uh-oh, he's gonna go crazy. That'd take a while. This is how you come down. Because since I opted on fishing this morning, means we're early, which means I get to hide in the shop while the chaos is going on inside with the girls as they pack, get their hair stuff and their dress stuff and their stuff ready. And I'm going to hide in here. I'm going to take advantage of this time and get some more voices heard. You might be able to hear the laptop working over there, and that's actually exporting. What is this? This is tomorrow when you're watching this, so this is exporting yesterday's video. This is what I'm doing while it's doing that. Can't stand wasting time, right? So hopefully that little thing isn't, that little laptop isn't too annoying of a background sound. I'll try to drown it out with my voice. So listen to this. This is titled Sasquatch Paralleling Me. Said many people. I actually shared this with you on your YouTube channel, but I'll tell it again. A bit over 20 years ago, me and a buddy had been in the woods in Hoosier National Forest during late season deer season. We had a bit of a shit day, but sat all day just to be in the woods and always good enough. We generally didn't sit near each other because we just have better luck there. And he was opposite of me from the truck. We knew where we were from each other and had hunted these woods all of our lives. Take note of that, you guys, all of their lives. So, we've been very comfortable hunting this area and confident of our surroundings. But this particular evening, I was on a ridge line about 1,000 yards from the truck and decided to start heading back to the truck since I could still see with the little bit of light I still had. It was a gentle sloping hill of maybe 20 or 30 degrees at its steepest as I descended. But just as I started walking, I could hear something in the ravine to the left of me, and it was maybe 75 yards or closer. And since the sun was almost gone, I couldn't see shit. But whatever it was heavy, and I was able to make out shadows on occasion, but never enough to make it out. And here in Indiana, we have no bears, and I've heard many deer come through. This thing was way bigger, and no damn deer is going to stay next to you, especially while the hunt pressure is on. And like so many of the other people I've heard on here, the sheer fear I felt was all but overwhelming. I was able to keep my wits about me, though through this, I decided to fight if I needed to. But to what end, I wouldn't be able to tell you even now. But I did carry my 45-70 lever gun, which for Indiana is a fine choice for my state. It's a powerhouse at short distances, out to about 150 yards. When I was about 100 yards from the truck and almost off the hill, I decided the route I was on seemed to be pretty stupid if I didn't want to meet this thing at the bottom of the hill. So I skirted my large ass down the other side of this hill and made my way to the road so I could see what was up ahead of coming at me. Never saw or heard it once I made it to the road, but my buddy showed up about 30 minutes later and had no clue what I had just been through until a few days later when I said something to him. He thought I'd been acting weird, but didn't pay it much mind, but never raised, sorry, there's a few, maybe it's me or these glasses, I don't know. Reflection from outside? Sorry. He thought I'd been acting weird, but didn't pay much mind. But never razzed me about it after that day, mainly because we have always thought this patch of woods was kind of strange. Missing punctuation, that's all. Like a ghost or some strange shit inhabits this part of the woods. We have been back a few times, but we tend to do morning hunts there more than anything now because the strange crap we always seems to be witness to, that place is alive at night, and it puts a chill up our spine every time we stay overnight. However, we do it on occasion with our families, but are vigilant as hell just to be cautious. I generally don't talk about this because I always feel like people think I'm out of my damn mind. Maybe I am, but not on this subject. And there you go. Many people have had that same experience, and many people have put us there with them quite easily through text. So we're picking up what you're putting down, man. We're picking it up. And you are not alone. Why do they do that to people? I don't know. I voiced my semi-frustration about that act they do a few times. It's kind of not fair. I don't know why they do it, but they do. It's a strong pattern. Paralleling. Next one is titled Forest Experience. Hi Steve, thank you for sharing the experiences of so many, as those experiences have helped make sense of what happened to me. Can't leave my name, but reading the following may benefit others in some way. I don't have much luck during Pennsylvania's 2018 flintlock deer season. I hunted in the northeastern part of the state as often as the January weather conditions permitted, and my 65-year-old legs allowed. I saw a few deer moving too fast or too distant to risk a shot with open sights and black powder. A friend recommended hunting on our hunting an area on state land bordering the Pocono Mountains near a well-known trout stream. I've been to the Poconos. The plan was to park off a little used paved road. Then I would hike along a small feeder brook about 0.7 mile until reaching the eastern hemlock trees that bordered the trout stream. There, I was set up and hopefully encountered deer that were taking shelter from the snow and the wind in the thick hemlocks. I reached the area without difficulty. There were deer tracks in the snow, deer droppings, and even several old buck rubs. I set up and was optimistic. Deer showed themselves in the distance throughout the day, but none were close enough to risk taking a shot with black powder. My hunting sense was on high alert though, and I remained fully optimistic. This same scenario played out for 3 days. The area obviously held deer, but they were not venturing close enough to afford this old hunter a shot. Each day I saw a deer, then hiked from my stand in the late afternoon to return to my 4x4. Each day in the late afternoon I hunted slowly back to the truck, resting at 2 sites I identified as being likely places to see passing deer. The second site was not far from the truck, perhaps a slow 15-minute still hunt, and it offered excellent vantage as well as an excellent resting place. A hefty hardwood tree had toppled in a north to south direction, and part of its giant root structure shot up from the ground in a half a circle and remained intact and covered in dirt and debris. The base of the broad root structure of this large tree faced south toward the prevailing winds, toward the hemlocks where I had been hunting. I could straddle the tree trunk, rest my back against the giant half circle of roots, and sit out of the wind. But each time I did this, I experienced an odd sense of agitation. I felt as if there was something directly behind me on the other side of the massive tree roots that didn't want me there. Each time I left for the short hike to my truck, I nervously peeked behind the roots looking for I don't know what. This edgy, uncomfortable feeling occurred 3 times. After looking behind the root structure, that final 3rd time, I cinched up my day pack, poured fresh powder in the Hawkins pan, and took a few steps to start the short still hunt back to my truck. My next realization was of stepping out of a hazy... One more time. My next realization was of stepping out of a hazy, semi-transparent tube as if I was walking out of a tunnel and into the forest. The tube vanished when I stepped out of it. My peripheral vision was briefly clouded, and I saw a small, short burst of faint, twinkling yellow stars off to each side. Oddly, at that instant, my mind remained calm and focused on hunting, and I was very pleased with the promising terrain in front of me. That sounds frickin' weird. Then, in the blink of an eye, I knew this terrain could not exist between where I had been resting and the short distance to my truck. Something was terribly wrong. I stopped in my tracks, confused, distraught, looking for landmarks. Nothing was familiar. My heart started racing, and I wondered if I had suffered a medical event. I performed a body check. Nothing seemed out of place, nor was I sweating, fatigued, or physically injured. I was profoundly confused and did not know what happened or where I was. It was as if something had absorbed me and spit me out somewhere else. That's not the only time we heard that. As my truck was to the left of that final spot where I had last rested, I began walking to the left. I went about 10 yards. Nothing looked familiar. I stopped again, realizing I truly had no idea of my whereabouts. I could have been in another state or another country. The time check indicated more than half an hour had passed. It was 15:30 when I was last moving toward the truck. It was now 16:10. I had, and to this day have, no memory of what occurred in that lost time. The forest was dead silent. The afternoon light was fading fast, and I desperately knew I had to get out of the woods before dark. I rummaged through my pack for a compass and took off en route due north. That was the general direction I was hunting as I returned to my 4x4. For some reason, this plan seemed logical. I still don't know why. At least I was insured of hiking in a straight northern direction. About a half an hour of anxious hiking led me to a paved road, the road of which I had parked. The road off of which I had parked. Another half-hour hike west on the road brought me to the truck. Later, by way of the truck's odometer, I found the distance from where I exited the woods to the truck was just shy of half a mile. What occurred during the missing 40 minutes and how I found myself a half a mile from my truck remains an enigma. I contemplate this incident often and struggle to find answers, but in my mind I always return to that strong, uncomfortable feeling experienced at the downed tree. I believe it is somehow the key. I never had such an experience before or after this, nor have I gone back to those woods. And I believe I received a stern message that day. I was not welcome there. I had ignored the feelings that goaded me to move on twice before. And after that third time, I suffered the consequences. Thank you for your ongoing search for the truth. God bless. That is something frickin' alarming for anybody in the woods, not just a hunter. You know, you guys know that I'm curious about the portal thing. Actually, I'm curious about everything. But as you were explaining that, I was finding myself envisioning, if I was near there, I think I would be game to go there with somebody, have them bring a video camera and stay back from that tree as far as I can, but still in view. And I would do it. I would go up to that tree and retrace your steps while being videotaped and see if anything happens or anything happened. Wouldn't that be something? Right? Or was that just a one-time thing? Or is whatever energy was going on there, is it mobile and random? All right? That's an alarming experience. Thanks for sharing that with everybody. I wonder how many more people are going to chime in saying they had the same experience somewhere. I wonder. That's freaking alarming. Alright, what's this? It's short. I'm going to mark it as red. This is titled Epic Sasquatch Story. Hiya Steve, longtime subscriber here. I've listened to you relay hundreds of Bigfoot accounts, but never have I heard you mention the war with the Sasquatches that took place here in southeastern Oklahoma. People don't realize it, but there is a huge wilderness area here. In fact, Oklahoma boasts 10 full ecosystems, the most of any state. This just means you can hunt just about any type of terrain and environment, from desert sands to mountainous rainforests to mountainous rainforests of the southeast part of the state. And in this part of the state, back in 1855, a war happened. A war between 35 Choctaw warriors led by Captain Lafleur, who was also to be part Choctaw. Apparently, these Sasquatches in question had been stealing from the Choctaws for quite some time. At first it was just crops and stock, but soon young children began disappearing. So the, quote, light horsemen, end quote, took up the rifles and went after the smelly beasts. In this battle, the Sasquatches were eliminated, but not before the captain's horse was killed with a single blow, and the captain himself having his head ripped from his body. It's all on the internet. Very interesting. Just thought you may want to pass this info on to your subscribers. The story is too long for me to get into, but you may want to read it on YouTube for anyone to hear. Anyway, Steve, my name is Brad. I sure appreciate your efforts, brother. I get it. Idaho, from the land of the red man. All right, man. That sounds interesting, and I've never heard anything about that myself until just when you shared that today. So, there you go. Sleuths, off you go. Go start digging. There's been many verbal accounts of First Nations tribes warring with these people in the past. There's another one. Weird encounter. Sasquatch question mark. Hi. I was out camping in some generic woods here in Sweden with a high school friend of mine. He woke me up in the tent about 4 a.m., shaking my leg vigorously but quiet. I sat up instantly and asked him, what? What I saw was him lying frozen with his index finger pushed across both his lips, staring at me through his nose. He would move. I carefully lie back down and grabbed my sleeping knife under my pillow, and we waited and waited and waited in dead silence. This morning was so quiet you could hear a chipmunk fart 200 yards away. Suddenly we hear steps coming from a couple of individuals on the dirt road right next to us. It sounded approximately 500 yards away. On the dirt road right next to us, 500 yards up the dirt road you are next to. Suddenly, something right next to us takes off, sounding and feeling like a startled elephant. I want to emphasize this thing took off square out of the woods. What do I mean? This animal wouldn't let any trees or obstacles alter its angle of direction, sounding like God threw a car out in the woods. This trample took off from right next to us. This thing stood there dead quiet, like a complete creep, for at least 15 minutes. And I want to stress this. As mighty as the trample and noise actually was, the feeling of being accompanied by this thing for so long undetected is what's really bothering. I remember letting go of the knife as soon as the trample began, because this was no moose, no bear. Quote, "What's my toy knife gonna do?" End quote. This thing took off so quick and so loud, we were stunned for several minutes. I don't know why I didn't think of unzipping the tent and getting a look of the creature as it took off, other than how terrifying it sounded / felt, and how fast this thing was gone. I kept thinking that this was the sound of a frickin' bipedal, unlike anything from the animal kingdom. Imagine hearing something and thinking that. The next thing I remember is my friend sitting up and says he had woken up when a hand cupped my head through the tent, weighed it in a rocking motion, and then just dropped him from the ground. That's a quote. This guy's been absolutely no liar throughout the years, and I can't remember seeing him scared my entire life. He's special like that. But the guy even looks traumatized at this point. We both agreed that, quote, "we won't be camping in deep woods ever again without guns or rifles," end quote. Although later we did. The couple on the road that passed us a few minutes after all this, and my friend snuck out of the tent and wanted to know if these two young men had seen anything. I can't recall if he presented them with what just occurred to us or not, but they shook their heads and said they hadn't seen anything prowling around, and carried on with theirs. I don't remember much more that day because the rest was probably 100% ordinary or mundane. I was only 24 at the time, but I'd say I was and am an experienced outdoors person. I'm 6 feet tall, 33 years old, and as I write this letter, I've seen all wildlife here in Sweden, up close, multiple moose, boar herds multiple times, and nothing sounds like what we heard that morning. My friend kept repeating, "I'm sure you don't believe me, I'm sure you don't believe me." A hand cupped my head. "I'm sure you don't believe me," for so long. And I always replied, "I heard and felt that thing too, you know. Don't worry, I believe you." It's one of those experiences that you know won't happen to you ever again. That explains how rare the whole thing felt. Since this happened, my friend entertained the idea of going back to that particular place to try to capture this thing on trail camera many times. Sometimes something we never did, sorry. Just want to share this story, man. Please let me know if you need any more details, want to chat on Skype or whatever. If you're reading this, you betcha I'm going to have something good to share to my buddy. Cheers, keep it up, Steve. You may present my name, Leif Mujica. Leif, appreciate you, man. Hope your country's is going to be on the road to repair pretty quick. I understand you guys have been going through some dog shit there past couple of years, and what an experience. And I wonder how many people from there are here listening to this right now, and they're going to chime in, right? From the Sweden chapter of the Club of No Return. The Sweden chapter of the Club of No Return. All over the world. Yeah, make sure you share this with your buddy, but more importantly, you guys keep talking about this openly wherever you guys are, right? All right? And see what more you can learn from the people in your area. Because this is global. There's just no way out of it. Who's next? Alright, here we go. Let's keep this ball rolling. Had to move the laptop into the house because it loads onto YouTube for you guys faster. Been in here for some weird reason. Listen to this. My wife experienced 2 Bigfoot. Keep spreading the truth, brother. My wife and I don't watch or read anything coming out of mainstream media. Research. And remember, Operation Mockingbird. On the subject of Bigfoot, I've never had an experience with one, but my wife has had 2. The first was behind her home in Gallatin County, Kentucky. Galinton County, Kentucky. She went outside to close her chicken house for the night. When she stepped out on her back porch, she heard loud growling noises coming from behind her chicken house and across the road from her house about 100 yards away. The second was a lot more scarier. She was in the bathroom when she heard what she says sounded like a gorilla. Sounds coming from outside her double wide. It then hit the outside of her home a couple of times. Do you have any idea why they would do that? A loyal follower and patriot, Terry Waddell. P.S. You can use my name if you choose. Gotcha, Terry. Thanks for that, man. Do you have any idea why they would do that? No, I don't have a clue. They did it to me. And it's not nice. At all. But no, I haven't a clue, man. Haven't a clue. It's not cool. At all. What do we got here? Alright, I don't know if I read this or not. It sounds familiar, maybe, but this is titled Idaho Archery Elk Hunt. But we have had a lot of Idaho elk hunt / Sabe Sasquatch encounters emailed in. Steve, just thought I would forward this to you again. I don't want to be a bother, and I'm sure you can't get to nor reply to all the data heading your way. Love and appreciate what you do and giving folks a forum to discuss the subject matter. Thanks again, Dave. Alright, sounds maybe familiar. Steve, 2 years ago, was hunting in central Idaho during the archery elk season, August 30th to September 30th. I've hunted the same area for 30 years. There are 5 of us who have regularly camped together during this time, but our hunts are solo, and usually with one guy in tandem. I think I read this. We've always talked about Sasquatch while in camp. One guy had an encounter 25 years ago in the vicinity of Elk City, a bit farther north of where we hunt, 3 hours or so. I've no doubt about his encounter when he has shared it on occasion. He knows they exist. I've always been skeptical. Then the tracks showed up. I found mine on an old decommissioned logging road, 17 inches in length and 6 inches across, the outline of a footprint with all toes clearly visible. What got me was the big toe and the next toe were splayed out by a rock embedded in the ground. When the print was made, the big toe was pushed to the left of the rock and the next toe to the right. I dropped my bow and pack and carefully crawled around for more sign, found none. I was hesitant about sharing my experience with my hunting partners and kept quiet until a few weeks later towards the end of the elk hunting season. I spoke up around the campfire as where we were all engaged in conversation and enjoying a few beers and whiskey. I described in detail what I found and where. This country is fairly remote, no vehicle access into where we hunt, and in 30 years I've ran into 2 or 3 people. People just don't go here. It's remote, rugged country. One guy said, "Interesting," then described how he and another guy had been farther up the same drainage a week later. There are beaver ponds at the top just before the mountain goes vertical. A nice creek flows through the drainage except where the beaver ponds are at. He said they found human-looking footprints everywhere, like a lady size 7 just walking around in the mud on the outskirts of the beaver ponds. That gave me the chills. This was a few miles up the same drainage where I saw my track. Then another buddy, the one who had his encounter 25 years ago, piped up. "Oh, they are here. Remember the teepee structure in Jurassic Park? We have names for each drainage area we hunt." Yeah, I've read this. Oh, well, I'm almost right there, but I read this. Sorry, I was lost where I was. We have names for each drainage or area we hunt. We found a teepee-looking structure years ago. Evidently, these creatures create them as a signal to others. He went on to say that it was relocated about 400 yards further up the drainage. I've seen these myself. No man nor group of men could build this without equipment. He continued saying that he saw a perfect print in the ground where a ground squirrel had dug up a pile of soft dirt. He stopped there and pointed out to his son and a buddy hunting with him that day. He said, "Just to be clear, look at this," pointing up the track. His son and friend were like, "F." Then he said, "Okay, we all see this, right?" And they agreed. Then he took his boot and wiped the track clean and said, "Let's go kill an elk." I can't explain the track I saw, nor the tracks my hunting buddies saw, all within about a 10 square mile area. We know this country like the backyard, having climbed all over the mountains for the past 30 years. We've killed deer, elk, bear, goats, grouse, and mountain lion. There's something else out there leaving tracks, which I and my buddies cannot explain. Like I said, my one buddy knows they exist, and I'm a solid I think they exist. Love your videos. Thanks for sharing your experience. And those of others, kind regards, David Carlson, Boise, Idaho. Okay, man, I read this before. I'm sure you don't mind hearing it again. And I hope you shared this with all your partners so they know that there is a lot of people out there that know. A lot. So many. So many. All right, here we go. Somebody else needs to be heard right here. Hi, Steve. You may use my name. Thank you for your advocacy for people who have had terrifying experiences in the woods and wilds. I respect the stories you have shared and the people who have shared them. I too have had an experience. In 1982, I was hiking the Green Mountain National Forest in Vermont, just north of Killington Mountain. Killington Mountain. My girlfriend was with me, and we were looking forward to a nice backwoods experience. At this time, my life was seriously discouraged. At this time of my life, I was seriously discouraged and not sure where I was going with my life. That's a part of life for everybody. The first night of our 3-day backwoods excursion, we stayed in a shelter on the Long Trail, a trail that bisects Vermont north to south and is part of the Appalachian Trail. The shelter was open on one side with fresh spring water nearby. We rolled out our sleeping bags and enjoyed the pristine wilderness setting. Falling asleep quickly, we looked forward to a good night's rest. Sometime after midnight, I was startled awake by a noise. As I woke up, I heard a deep-throated, growling noise about 15 feet from us, from the open side of the shelter, which offered no protection. Something big was out there. Its growl was loud, deep, and penetrating. Instantly, I was not just scared, but rather terrified. The thing was going to leap on us and tear us apart. I could not even look. This experience was entirely auditory because I was too scared to look. I've heard big cats before. This was not it. I've heard bear before, and that was not it. It sounded remotely canine and big. It was the predator. We're the prey. There's a profoundly evil and malicious quality to its growl. I was instantly wits end scared. I'd never been that scared in my life. My girlfriend heard it as well. There's a difference between scared and terrified, and it is no exaggeration to say I personally know the difference because of this moment. Yet, almost instinctively, I bowed my head and prayed the Lord's Prayer. Later, my girlfriend told me she was praying as well. I kid you not, by the time I got to the second word of that prayer, Father, the beast that was intent on ripping us limb from limb fled the scene, completely disappearing out of earshot before I finished the third word of the Lord's Prayer. I finished the prayer, realizing it had been at least 15 years since I had said it, but I missed not a word. The span of time for this whole thing was not more than 4 to 5 seconds, and it was as if time itself was suspended. Then the really strange thing happened. I settled back down and went directly back to sleep, feeling secure enough to rest well and sleep until daylight. I realize this outcome is different than many who share the stories with you. I respect their stories because I know the feeling of terror. This is not a dream. My girlfriend heard all as well and was similarly terrified. It was hard for her to get back to sleep, but she also managed to rest. Within a week or so of this event, I gave my life to Jesus Christ and have been seeking to serve Him ever since. Now I'm a pastor. I married my girlfriend and we have a really nice family. Life hasn't been easy, but I am blessed. I found out much later that a couple of miles away from the shelter was a town which 100 years before had famously been a center for occult activity that drew people from all over the world. Well, that's kind of weird. I can't really comment on the occult shit because the occult means hidden and I just don't know. So you don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know, I haven't a clue. I do still go out in the woods. Me and my kids have a campsite on our property where we camped when they were young. I know that there are things/beings out there that intend us harm, and I believe that wisdom is the better part of valor. But I know that as terrified as I was that night 39 years ago, the beast that was ready to pounce on us was even more frightened of who/what God sent to protect us. Blessings. Mark Heinrichs. You can use my name. Mark, appreciate that. And the terror, so many of you out there have felt this intentional terror. I haven't felt intentional terror. I've been shitting myself, but not terror. Yeah, I hope I don't feel it. And there you go, another member of the Club of No Return. And here's a next email with an odd photo. All right. Again, thanks for sending that, man. And you have any more knowledge you want to share with us. And I will say, there is a very, very strong pattern that's come up as well, another one of our patterns, which is rebuking the name of the Lord, reciting prayer, has effectively stopped what's been going down when it comes to these beings. What's up with that? But do we have a face-to-face, do we have an experience where somebody saw one of these beings and used the name of God or Jesus, rebuked, used a prayer, and physically saw the effects on that being? That's curious. Because from what we understand, what I think I've only read so far is people hearing and sensing and feeling and praying and ending it. But I'm not certain if we have seen a typical Sasquatch described being right there, broad daylight, 2 to 3 inches of hair, grayish skin, long arms, hands down by the knees, tree trunk legs, if they have turned and ran upon the mention of the Lord's Prayer, Jesus, God, whatever. Have we heard that yet? See what I'm getting at? Is the terror a Sasquatch or Sabe person? Or is it something else? Right? Maybe somebody can answer us with that. Alright, one more. And then I gotta go. This is titled Bluff Charged, Screamed At. Hey Steve, what you're doing is perfect. Thanks and please keep it up. My story is like dozens of others. I was bluff charged, screamed at, and followed by an angry Sasquatch. What I want to talk about are the parts that still disturb me. 15 years ago, I was on a spring hike in the coastal mountains of Central California, 3 miles inside the Sasquatch wilderness. I came on an old empty campsite with a spring and shady oaks. So I stopped for a break. I cooled down, drank water, and looked around and noticed things were kind of strange. First, there was an old coffee can that had been split open and laid flat. Jammed together. Read that one. Read it. Sorry guys, read it not too long ago. Here's another one. 1993 Sasquatch encounter on the Classist Highway on my way to Alaska. Never heard of that highway. Classist. Steve, I've been sending this to the wrong email. Steve, hey, I just want to say thank God that I found you and your channel. I'm so thankful for what you're doing. You're the only person on this planet that speaks the truth about this subject. You can use my name if you want, I'm not afraid. The bullshit out there on the subject is so deep, and the most recent on television, Expedition, using algorithms to predict where a mythical creature might be. Mythical? ? Are you effing kidding me? Most everyone on this planet is so preoccupied with their phones and computers and have this self-righteous attitude and somehow have the perception that we as a species are so smart. What will they say when they find out that there are people on this planet who are more advanced than us on the evolutionary chain? Maybe not in the realm of technology, but in relation to this Earth. And we would no longer be able to use Homo sapiens as the DNA baseline at the top of the scale. I can't guarantee if DNA were put against ours, it would tilt the scale in the opposite direction. Like, for example, humans 100% top of the scale, bonobo chimps 99.85% from human, regular chimpanzees 98%, great apes 97%, orangutans 94%, etc. If they include Sasquatch DNA, it would say 115%, 15% in the other direction. My point being, why don't you place a human on a mountain in the forest in the middle of winter at 10,000 feet elevation with no clothes on and no tools and tell me how long they would last? They would last 3 days. These people are far more advanced and in tune with the earth than we could ever be. My encounter, year 1993, middle of May. This is only the 5th time I've told this story to anyone outside of my family members, and the 4 before you I've almost been in fistfights, and the people I was talking to would not have just walked away cleanly. It was the end of my junior year in college at Arizona State University. My roommate and I had secure jobs on the Kenai Peninsula, Alaska, through a good friend of ours who had fished commercial salmon the year before. Set netting between the Castleoff and Kenai rivers. My roommate secured a job with... We'll get names here. You know what? I've read this too. What's going on? I've read this. Read it. Sorry guys. I've been a bit of a mess since my phone got hacked or whatever happened and everything got deleted, and all the saved emails I had from my inbox, which weren't read, disappeared, but they're still in my inbox and they're marked as read. That's a bit of a mess for how many emails are here. Let's try this. Cascade Coast is the title of this one. Hey, I know you're very busy. I don't expect you to reply. I just want you to know I feel exactly the same about the media and corruption today as you. At 51, been running around the dark places of the Cascade Coast and a little in the blue mountains of eastern Oregon my whole life. My passion is hunting and fishing in the thick rainforest on the west side in places that many are unwilling to go. I've chased the rules of elks all my life. That's elk. And have a few, and called in guided close friends to success. Loving hunting the little blacktails, but they always knock my Peter in the dirt. Thanks to you and your videos, I'm getting better at figuring out the habits of these deer. Well, that's good news. I don't know a ton of people, as I'm a loner. I have very few close friends that share my love for the mountains and hunting, but I personally don't know of anyone besides maybe yourself that has spent as much time in the wilds as I do. I've had trail cams in the mountains for years, and I've had thousands of pics and videos of our local wildlife. It's one of my favorite things. I'll get to the point. I've never had an experience with one of these entities you were talking about in your videos, not even close, nor do I ever want to have one. I've never felt anything odd or out of place. Nor has any of my buddies that I know of. But I have no doubt that others have. My family's Irish history goes back to the late 1600s on this continent, and my father's side, they are married into the Shawnee and Delaware tribes. On my mother's side, they are from Spain and married into the Salish tribes of the West Coast back in the late 1600s. First Nation lore of these entities goes back before recorded history on this continent, so I do not doubt for a second that something really is going on. I know I don't have all the answers, not even close. About 25 years ago, I sat with an old elk hunting pard on an elk trail and we talked about this subject. My comment to him about what I think is really happening has not changed since that day, but has only been made more firm by the things I see happening around us in the world today. I told my pard that I believe people are seeing something, but what they think they are seeing and what it truly is are not the same thing. I'm a believer in the Great Spirit that the First Nations people worshipped, the one that created all life as we know it, the same Creator that all mankind has looked towards heaven and wished to have a true relationship with. I do not follow any religious organization created by man, but instead follow his lead by what I see in his creation and nature, and also by the laws he has written inside each one of our hearts. I absolutely agree with the standards that Christ taught on the Sermon on the Mount, and aspire to change my heart to follow these perfect principles, knowing I will fail but keep trying. I told my buddy on that trail 25 years ago that my gut tells me that what people are seeing is of a demonic nature, and that it is real in some way and maybe an illusion in other. The Nephilim are spoken about in the book of Genesis, as well as the book of Jude, as well as others' book of the Bible. Also the book of Enoch, which is not in the canon of our scripture, but is and has been in the Ethiopian Bible. It goes into great depth about these creatures. Humans today have come a long ways with manipulating DNA genetics. I wonder a lot about a connection between what is happening now with what happened long ago in regards to opening of Pandora's box, messing with the genetic code of life. Something I wonder greatly about. Is there some reason why some are more prone to have these experiences while others never do? And if so, what could be the facts that separate the two different situations? I have my ideas and strong hunches. Could it be that some are protected from these entities? And if so, why? You're a proper badass, Steve. I believe we share much of the same love for the outdoors and limited time for bullshit. Keep doing your thing. I love it. Stand with you. Thank you, Paul Connor. Okay, man. Appreciate you, Paul, and the kind words of support. Keep talking. You keep talking to your fellow man and find out what's up. Keep listening to the people today for your solid answers. And you know what? If you're doing what you're doing, then you keep doing it. I won't be surprised at all if you don't get a face-to-face experience handed to your ass, right? And if you don't, I wouldn't complain. Right? I wouldn't complain. Here's one more short one, then we're going to come to close. It's titled Bigfoot Sighting. Hi Steve, sorry to hear about Macaroni, your horse. Sorry to bring up a bad subject, but how did he die? Was it unexpectedly, or did he get a croup or twisted intestinal problem? Any event, sorry for your loss. It's funny how you start. Okay, how did he go? He went too early, he was young, he was towed in, and then he got, I spent thousands of dollars on probably 5 different veterinarians trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And the fourth one said he had ring bone. I tried all sorts of shit, and he just started deteriorating, and he couldn't barely even walk. He was absolute ridiculous pain, and I tried, and it wasn't going to happen, so we had to put him down. That's what happened. Now, moving along. It's funny how when you start thinking about the past, you start remembering more about the event, especially when you're young and just learning things. I wrote you about me being 8 or 10 working with older men. I was working around the cabin in the Sierra Nevada mountains at a place called Brown's Meadow. Everyone was out, and I was doing chores around the camp, chopping wood for stove and hauling it inside for the cook. Excuse me, he was about 60 or so, back in late 1969, and I was 10. He was a crusty old skinny as rail. He was crusty old skinny as a rail. His name was Salty Peters. For some reason, I think he was a cook in the Navy. Perfect for a cow camp in the mountains. We had been having trouble with bears getting into the cooler, as we called it. A screened wooden box about 3 by 3 foot square with a locking door and a rope and pulley which was raised and lowered each time we needed meat or bacon. It hung about 10 feet in the air from the tree. Something was getting at it during the night. The cabin was full of bunks and old guys, about 6 of them, so they would make me sleep outside on the downside of the cabin. It was scary as hell, but I wasn't going to let these guys run me off. Anyway, I was out by the trail. They ran by the cabin. And as I recalled it now, I saw some guys up off the trail about 50 yards or so, kind of in the trees watching me. They looked like people, but big. I thought they had clothes on, but I couldn't tell. I went and asked the cook who they were. He came out and looked, turned around, and grabbed me by the arm. As I think about it now, he may have been upset. He told me they were mountain men who lived in the mountains all the time. We hurried back into the cabin. I was thinking, cool, how do they live out here all the time? He stoked up the fire and started cooking and cussing. He might have been upset with all my silly questions, is what I thought at the time. But now upon reflection, he was upset about the mountain men. LOL, he was cooking navy beans or lime beans in a pressure pot, and the safety plug blew out of it, spreading beans everywhere. I was laughing and had to clean them up. Shortly after that, the outside hanging cooler was ripped from the 10-foot hanging spot and was not put back that year. All the guys were on edge from the bear getting the cooler. They let me sleep inside a couple of days, and then it was back outside. It was toward the summer's end. There were other people staying in the camp also. It put the group at about 10 or 12. Anyway, I woke up in the middle of the night or early morning. I was being lifted up in my sleeping bag. Needless to say, I was kicking and screaming bloody murder. I fell out of my bag and I woke up about 15 feet from where I was sleeping. I didn't know if the guys were playing tricks on me to scare me or not. That's what I thought it was. But funny, no one was laughing or teasing me about it. I guess I was too dumb to be scared, or too scared. What they would say. Somehow I survived, LOL. Spent every summer in the Sierras until I was 18, packing mules and moving cows. It was a good life. Everyone should see or experience. Never carried a backpack. If I can't ride there on my horse, I wasn't going. LOL. Thanks, Steve. I can kind of relate to that, but unfortunately, I hiked a lot. It's funny, we used to have our Wranglers, Wranglers would be stuck in a wall tent outside and everybody's in the cabin. And then later on I realized it's much better in the cabin and let all the old guys, it's much better out of the cabin and let everybody sleep in there, because somebody always sounds like a frickin' Peterbilt Freightliner snoring every time in that one room cabin. So they're probably doing you a favor, sort of. Being picked up in your sleeping bag. You know, the first one. Albert Ostman got picked up in his sleeping bag and taken away. But he escaped. Now I gotta get going. I still got some more fish to process. Get this loaded up for you guys. For all of us. It's funny, I can tell you a funny thing. I posted something on somewhere. Social media, Instagram maybe. And I read a couple comments. What did I? Oh, it was the old pictures. I posted the old photo, some old photo. I got a chest load of them right there. I'll post more. People like to see them for some weird reason, but I don't know who it was. Somebody commented and said, because I said, "Holy cow! 25 years ago, how did that happen? 25 years ago, I was up in that cache, making that cache." I said something about how that happened, and then a guy commented and said, "Yeah, now you're just an old storyteller." Like, what? But it made me think. Telling stories. Myself and many people that have done the same things as I got a lot of stories. And a lot of people like to hear those stories, want to hear it. And then when that kid said that to me, I guess it was a kid, it made me think, well, I wonder what you boys are going to be, who's going to be the great storytellers 50, 60 years from now? What are they going to start talking, what are they going to be talking about? I started picturing, I was telling Sarah this earlier, I'm like, yeah, I was one of the original gamers. Remember times we'd sit up for 3 nights and 3 days playing games, video games, the original video games, you know, the real good ones. We're the best video gamers around. Yeah, remember we used to do that other crazy drug just to keep us awake to play those video games all those nights. Do you know what I mean? Like, what are you young bastards going to be telling stories about 50, 60 years from now? What are the storytellers going to be telling? I used to be one of the great original meme makers on social media. The original one of the best meme makers out there. You know what I mean? Now I wonder, what are the storytellers going to be telling about in 50 or even 100 years, if we're still alive? Unless those filthy psychopaths continue to elevate and escalate war on the face of the earth and ruin all this fun for us, right? They've been making it pretty good. They've done a pretty good job of ruining the fun for a lot of people. They gotta be stopped. They have to be stopped. Anyway, I'm babbling. I'm tired. Been up since 4:30 in the morning. I don't know what time it is right now, but it's been a long one. I hope everybody's safe out there. If you got something you want to get off your chest or some knowledge to share with the people, it's share my story at howtohunt.com. And make sure every chance you get, you better start speaking out against the war.
Mommy?
Yeah.
Dale's here.
Okay. Gotta go. Pull him right in front of the camera again. Pull him in front of the camera.